During a recent interview, Fox News host and top Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway attempted to manipulate Donald Trump to his face into a debate rematch against Vice President Kamala Harris following his disastrous first debate performance against her. But Trump is clearly too traumatized to take the bait and made a bunch of excuses as to why he couldn't possibly, even though he really, really wants to. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have a couple of clips to look at in this video, and it's going to be a fun video. It's basically just here to make fun of Donald Trump and expose his hypocrisy and his obvious excuses and his obvious trauma following a brutal ass-kicking, proverbially speaking, at the hands of the vice president in the first debate. Kellyanne Conway is one of Trump's most effective surrogates. She is very formidable. She is a spin doctor par excellence. She is the ex-wife of Trump critic George Conway, mother of Claudia Conway, who is also becoming a prominent Trump critic. And unfortunately, Kellyanne has decided to use her powers for evil. So she's a Fox News host. She recently interviewed Donald Trump. And she understands, even though Trump won't admit it to himself, that Vice President Harris crushed Trump in the debate. And she does not want that to be the final impression Trump leaves on MAGA voters, particularly in a tight election. So during this interview with Trump, she tried to appeal to his vanity and his sense of curiosity, his sense of legacy into a rematch against the vice president. But Trump wasn't having it.
And I just believe when you see the end of that debate, are you going to let that be the last word of presidential debates of this season, end of your career, or are you going to want one more?
I would love to have 2 or 3 more debates. I like it. I enjoy it. But they're so rigged and so stacked. You'll see it tomorrow with JD. It'll be stacked.
So he's referencing, at the time of recording, tonight's 9 p.m. Eastern debate with Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota against Republican Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, Trump's running mate. And we'll talk about that debate here in a second. But again, you see the excuses. Oh, I'd love to do 2, 3. I love debates. God, I would love 20 debates if I could. But also they're rigged against me. Well, how are they rigged against you? Well, you said the CNN debate was really fair. Of course, that ultimately contributed to President Biden withdrawing from the race. Now you're saying a CNN debate would not be fair because the first one was fair and they'd have to compensate for the fairness of the first debate. You have no evidence for it. The upcoming debate with J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz, there will be no fact checking, according to the network hosting it. So how is it rigged against you? And also, weren't you asked about this recently and you said that it was just too late to have a debate, even though back in 2020, your debate against President Biden was on October 22nd. And so this CNN debate would be 1 calendar day later. Like, you see what I'm saying? All of his excuses are inconsistent. They're mutually exclusive, right? He's clearly traumatized. He knows he was humiliated at the hands of the vice president, which is part of the reason why in subsequent rallies and campaign events, he's like, people say that I fell into a trap or whatever. That's not true. There was no trap. I don't fall into traps. Nobody does that. My crowds are perfect. He's still very clearly traumatized by a disastrous debate performance that the vast majority of the polls say he lost by similar margins as they say that President Biden lost the debate against Trump back in late June, right? Donald Trump just can't cope with the fact that he was so effortlessly outfoxed by Vice President Harris. The problem is, Kellyanne Conway and other Trump surrogates like Bill O'Reilly, I shouldn't say Trump surrogate, Trump sympathizers like Bill O'Reilly, they know Trump lost the debate and they know it's potentially game changing. Frank Luntz, top Republican pollster, has said that it will be a contributing factor in Trump's likely defeat in November. Kellyanne Conway knows that Donald Trump is a pathological liar and malignant narcissist, so she can't come out and say, sir, you got your ass kicked. You can't afford to do this because then he'll never talk to her again. So she has to come up with clever ways, almost like cartoonish ways to goad him into a rematch against the vice president as kind of a Hail Mary in the hopes that he can defeat her in a subsequent debate. So she went on another Fox program, Jesse Watters Primetime, and talked about this as well, because she's making it very clear she needs Trump and she feels that MAGA needs Trump to debate the vice president a second time and redeem himself after that crushing first defeat.
Running me, he said, quote, I think I'll park him in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And now Trump is actually winning Pennsylvania. Kamala's going to struggle with the union households, the Catholic households, anybody who touches and concerns fracking and cares about anybody who's in the energy industry. I asked President Trump today, I interviewed for an hour. I said to him, the guy I know, you, is not going to be able to sit still after a 90-minute VP debate and let that be the last word in presidential debates. You're going to say, well, when's our next one? And I hope he does that.
What do you think? Do you think there's going to be another debate with Harris?
He had said no, but he didn't say totally no. That October 23rd one was CNN's too late. But why not get back in there? Trump's like, I told him, you're like Shohei Ohtani. You're pitching, you're batting. You've done 7 of them. She's 1 for 1. Big deal. But look, the other thing he told me today is he doesn't feel safe.
He's Ohtani, and JD's shagging flies. A lot of great.
So even the upward inflection in their voices, like, go back and listen to that clip. The upward inflection, like, oh, so I told him, the debater and you're really not going to be happy just letting that be the final word in presidential debates. I mean, I think you're going to want to get out there. And even Jesse Waters, then he matched her upward inflection. And they're treating the 78-year-old man who was the president of the United States, who is the leader of their party, who may yet become president again, like a child that they're trying to manipulate into eating his asparagus. Oh, wow. You don't want to be the only one leaving the asparagus on the plate, do you? I mean, everybody else was a big boy and they ate their asparagus. Don't you want to be a big boy too? Well, I guess it's so pathetic and so telling, so instructive about how deep down they view Donald Trump. Here's the thing. There are genuine MAGA cultists out there. I believe it. I'm not convinced that Jesse Waters is one, and I don't believe Kellyanne Conway is one. I think Kellyanne Conway recognizes Donald Trump as a moron, as a vector for her own success. He is a means by which she can achieve notoriety and success in the political world. It was a job to her. It's very mercenary. And I think Jesse Waters probably looks at it similar. I think they recognize that Donald Trump is deeply mentally and physically unfit to be president, that he is not competent, certainly not compared to Vice President Harris. And it's part of the reason why when Jesse Waters is on the 5, you see so much anger there, because he's like, God, I have to defend this moron. I have to try to put lipstick on this particular pig, to borrow a Southern expression. But yeah, that's where we are. Now, I will say in the upcoming debate, as of tonight, my expectations are much more tempered compared to my confidence in the presidential debate. There is a seismic, disparity between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. She is much smarter than he is. She is much more mentally fit and than he is, much more disciplined on the facts and policy than he is, as much as people want to pretend otherwise. JD Vance is not an idiot. JD Vance is very smart. JD Vance can do an impression, persuasive impression of a moron, but he's much like Ted Cruz. He's not stupid. He's very smart. And Governor Tim Walz is very smart as well. So it's much more equally matched, the two candidates in the upcoming vice presidential debate, which I think is going to be a tougher sell. Now, the one clear advantage that Walz has on JD Vance, even if they have a comparable intellect, is that Walz is eminently more likable. So I think Walz will still win if he stays disciplined, if he makes sure he doesn't lose his the one thing that really distinguishes him from Vance, which is his sense of integrity, it's his sense of sincerity, it's his sense of affability. As long as he doesn't lose that, I think he's going to win, but I think it's going to be a much closer contest. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, I don't know. Things could change. He's very mercurial, but what is very clear is that he is terrified of a debate against the vice president. He's terrified of a rematch. And I think that the vice president should continue to taunt him accordingly. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.